Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Big Ideas in Education. I am Dr. Sarah Boulos, Somerset Academy Schools, joined, of course, by my co-host, Ryan Kairalla of Doral College. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be chatting with you.
Great to have you. What do you want to talk about today?
So this is from the 74, one of my favorite publications. They always have cool education news, and this one's no exception. New York City's Department of Education is set to significantly expand one of its most popular career initiatives. Its Modern Apprentice program, developed in partnership with Wall Street companies and other top firms, gives New York students the opportunity to test drive business careers at corporate powerhouses while still in high school. The apprenticeships take place at companies such as J.P. Morgan Chase, Accenture, Amazon, and Bank of America, and apprentices are paid between $15 and $25 an hour. Participating companies also contribute $4,000 a year to training each apprentice, which can cover technical certifications, career-specific training, and even college tuition. The goal is to expand the program from its current roster of 500 students to over 4,500 students within the next 5 years. The program's organizers hope that the apprenticeships can help students learn more about potential career paths, provide them with practical education, and possibly even offer some students an alternative pathway to middle-class careers without going into college or taking on debt. Now, Sarah, one of the things about this article that I find interesting is that they asked some of the businesses who participate in this program, is this a charitable project? Is this a way to kind of give back to the next generation, to give back to the community? And they all say, no, this is not charity. This is a business necessity for us. Many of our older workers are retiring. Our employees are shifting careers amid the COVID pandemic. And we need a new crop of young people, and we need new pathways to bring them into our company. So a program like this, which is enriching the school children of New York City as well as these companies, is really a win-win for everybody involved. And you know I love practical training, so I think this is pretty exciting.
I can only imagine, as soon as you said something about charitable, I can only imagine the fact that, so many of us, so many of our industries are in a labor shortage, that it would be a necessity, right? It's not a charity to be providing opportunities in schools for businesses to partner with education, right? We are all in a situation, teaching is especially included in a situation where we're in a labor shortage. We're in a shortage of teachers. We're in a shortage of quality workers in so many different fields that it makes perfect sense that businesses would want to do this. Did it mention how long the program was running? Did you say that? I'm sorry.
It's been going for a few years now, kind of at a pilot stage when you consider its current number of enrollment, just a few hundred students, but they want to grow it to over 4,000, 5,000 students by the end of the decade.
Yeah. So the reason why I was asking is, it's been, I think, about the past 10 years that there's been such a strong push here in Florida for career and technical education programs. So it would only make sense to me that the next step is to make sure that we're partnering with those industries to make sure that those career and technical programs that we're building here at our schools come to some level of fruition by actually preparing them to go into that industry. And who better to tell us than the actual people doing those jobs?
Absolutely. Now, what do you think of the aspect of this article talking about these apprenticeship programs creating a pathway to work at these companies as an alternative to going to college or taking on lots of student loan debt? Now, a lot of the students who do this program do wind up going to college, and some of the companies even help pay for that college. But in many other cases, the companies are saying, you're doing this as an alternative to college. We'll hire you right away. Because in our line of work, Sarah, we're often conditioned to kind of tell students, this is college prep. Go to college, go to college, go to college. And now we're getting a different message from at least a subset of corporate America saying, college isn't necessarily a necessity for you. We have another path.
Well, I think it's a fantastic option, not just for students who may not academically desire to go to college, but for so many who maybe financially cannot make that commitment. And maybe they're a really great student, right? I think a lot of times people put kids into this binary of whether they're a college going student or not based on academics, but not always taking desire into it or affordability. So we have a lot of options for students who have the desire to go to college and can't afford it, right? Or we hope we do when we talk about scholarships and grant opportunities. But, it's been a very big topic lately with all of the student loan debt that one has to accrue to be able to go to college and probably graduate school. Is it worth it? I remember I saw a YouTube video recently about would you be better off spending your money going to Harvard or getting a Chick-fil-A franchise or something like that? And they were doing an actual comparison of if you invest this much in your education versus if you invested this much in becoming a business owner. And it kind of sounds like it's a line played for laughs, but I think it's a conversation that we are having with students is, well, if this is not something that's affordable for you, what career options do you have? Because I say kids, but some people have to go to work as soon as they graduate from school. They don't have the option to go further their education, maybe because of family circumstance or other issues. So I think that's a really fantastic option. And I think that the idea that we are taking these opportunities for students and that providing these opportunities should be almost academically agnostic, right? We're not just saying this, so this is because you couldn't handle getting into school or because you're not the kind of student who could go to college academically. This is your fallback plan.
Yeah. And one of the other kind of wrinkles of this story that I thought was interesting, and this isn't something that I would have known without having read the article, is that programs like this are not a uniquely American phenomenon. In fact, this particular program in New York City was inspired by similar programs in Europe, particularly in Scandinavia and other countries, where these kind of apprentice programs where you blur the lines between the world of work and the world of education, that blurring happens a lot more often. And so we're kind of borrowing from our neighbors on the other side of the Atlantic and creating a pretty cool merger of education and industry. I love it.
It is really interesting. I have heard about a lot of different programs in Europe. I think that they may have different requirements. It may be a little different from, the exact program that's going on in New York. A lot of European programs actually that I'm familiar with, of course, I can't speak to all of them, they actually are kind of putting students on those tracks pretty early on in their educational career, right? So I've heard of some, where they do some kind of testing around maybe where we would consider students to be maybe 14 or 15 years old. And depending on how you do on those tests, puts you on track for either technical or university track, right?
I see.
So not exactly in the mindset I was thinking of, but it is an interesting aspect. And I do think that desire and interest should play a bigger role in that.
Without a doubt. Now, I think my story is a pretty innovative way to kind of serve students in a unique way and meet students where they are. And I feel like your story is an example of that as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what you brought us this week?
Yeah, so many schools are spending a good amount of time right now, time and attention, focusing on academic gains they want to see this year. There's a lot of pressure to perform after school was interrupted nearly 2.5 years ago with the pandemic. But schools in Colorado are also focusing on another key aspect of working with our students that needs a lot of attention, and that is mental health. Kate Pitonis is part of the generation experiencing one of the greatest mental health crises ever in Colorado. She recently started her sophomore year at Kunzmiller Creative Arts Academy in Denver. At 15 years old, she has lived through unprecedented times as a teenager and sometimes struggles with her mental health. We have been experiencing chronic stress across society for the last almost 3 years now, and chronic stress has a real significant impact and a long-standing impact on our mental health over time, said Jessica Hawks, PhD, a clinical child and adolescent psychologist and the clinical director of the Pediatric Mental Health Institute at Children's Hospital, Colorado. Comparing numbers from the beginning of 2019 to the beginning of 2022, Children's Hospital saw a 103% increase in the number of patients who arrived in crisis. In just the last year, the hospital saw a 23% increase of patients in crisis. While these numbers are alarming, Hawks said that there are a lot of things that, can be done here. While dealing with her own struggles and physical and mental health, while also seeing her friends struggle with anxiety and depression, spurred Kate into action. Potonis became involved last year and helped come up with a plan to build a wellness room inside her school. She said it's like a decompression space where students can go in and just relax and take a break because school is pretty long. The school day is pretty long. No arguments here. The point is you can decompress and go back into class with a better mindset and not just ditch the entire class and get a failing grade for the day in that class, she says. For the beginning of the school year, especially this year, kids will have to deal with an increasing amount of stress in other ways. For example, the beginning of the school year is always a stressful transition time for students, but this school year, there's an added pressure for things to, quote, return to normal. If you think about the young kids in school for second, third grade, their first couple years in grade school was completely unlike anything any of us have ever experienced. So they're actually re-entering school almost for the first time, said Hawks. While stopping these stressors isn't always achievable, Hawks emphasizes to youth and parents there are actionable things that they can do to truly make a difference and even save a life. One of the most important things that youth should remember when they're going back to school is to get back to the basics. It's amazing what a difference all of the basic health, hygiene sorts of things can have on all of our mental health. That was from Dr. Hawks. So the wellness room is currently under construction, and they are hoping to have it, to be able to have it up and running in the next few months. This is really exciting. I always love to see when students get involved in projects like this. I actually know of some of our schools that have created spaces such as this. They started building one that I know of before the pandemic, and it was called a Zoom room, but once we all ended up on Zoom all the time, we decided to change the name of it to Zen Zone. So
I can't think of a word that I would less associate with calm and inner peace.
That's actually what they were called. Like there are articles about building Zoom rooms in your school, and of course that didn't. That name carries some different meaning.
Absolutely. No, to be fair, the word definitely conveyed much different feelings pre-2020.
Yes, exactly.
That's fascinating. So I'm curious now, since you have some background, some real world background into what these kind of rooms can look like. That was my first question, is what goes into a wellness room? What can a student experience when they walk into one of those?
Because the students are building this, that they have some specific ideas, but there are some, and we can share some resources, but there are some, outlines to creating like sensory zones or sensory spaces for students. So they talked about in this article, which of course we'll link to in the description box of the episode, beanbag chairs, some intense noise canceling headphones where students can kind of put them on and tune out, almost like a very mild, like sensory deprivation kind of a thing. But it's really to help tune out the world and just get yourself centered, and so that you can focus on, if it's an anxiety issue, you can focus on quieting the noise around you, putting the headphones on, and just being able to breathe in your own space. I was talking to a young student this past week, actually, and we talked about taking deep breaths and counting to 4 and things like that. And this child said something to me. I mean, this was a very young child, so he was incredibly articulate for his age, but saying things like, sometimes, it's hard to hear the good messages because there's so many bad thoughts. And it just really breaks my heart. But I think that's at the key of it, right? So there's a lot of negativity that kids are experiencing, whether we recognize it or not. Just the transition of going back to school, while yes, there's some great things that are happening, but it's a very stressful time. And so getting our students to a place where they know they're safe to just stop, breathe, get yourself focused, get back to what you need to do, take a beat, take a moment. So many of us as adults will say, I mean, I had a colleague, I was very proud of them, but they said to me, it's been a very busy week, and we were on a Zoom call, and they said, I need 5 minutes. Can we just stop? And can I take 5 minutes? And I said, yes, of course. And I want us to encourage, to advocate for ourselves like that. And for our students, sometimes we need a minute. And so I think it's good that we provide these spaces and these opportunities where kids are not going to get in trouble for just taking a minute.
That's a really cool story, and I definitely appreciate the sentiment there. It seems to me that for something like this to thrive at the school level and to fully meet the goals we want them to achieve in terms of forwarding students' mental health and giving students an opportunity to practice those self-advocacy skills that you're talking about so that they can do that effectively later in life when they want to tell people, I need 5 minutes. It seems to me that a room like that is only as effective as the support it has at the school, right? You need policies in place so that students know you can go to that room without it having a negative impact on your attendance or on your academic progress. Similarly, there needs to be a level of protection around that room. I know, and you know, on school campuses, space in a school can be a premium. And
yes, it is.
There's always going to be that temptation to use that room for assemblies or, oh, we need an extra classroom space or something else. And if it's going to be your wellness room, it's got to be your wellness room every single day of the school year, because you're going to have students with mental health difficulties every day of the school year.
You're absolutely right. So protecting that space, protecting that time, and letting students know that it's okay when you need a minute, and helping them to maybe come up with procedures. Like when I was a young teacher, I actually, looking back, I think it was very, I don't know what the right word is, but it was something that I learned very early on as an educator. I had something, we're taught to do these procedures. Like if you need to go to the bathroom, you can make a signal to the teacher. If you have to get a glass of water or something, you want to go to the water fountain, you can signal the teacher. We try to do a lot of nonverbal ones. And I had a specific desk in my classroom, and it was called the peace out desk. And if you needed a moment, you could give me the peace symbol, the little 2 fingers, and give me the peace symbol. And at any point in the class, you were allowed to give that signal and go to the desk. And there were some activities to do at that desk. You could, there were some prompts. So like, how are you feeling? Do you need this? And they were able to sit there and use that to help them self-regulate. And if you needed a moment, you would go take it. And it does not work you're not allowed to do that during a test. You're not allowed to do it during this, right? You have to realize that has to be protected and teach students the procedures of how to do this. And when you feel this happening, you feel the anxiety, you feel the frustration, you feel like you're going to maybe make a bad decision, this is where you're safe to go peace out for a minute and just take a moment.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, I'm so glad we got the opportunity to share these stories. We'd love to hear from you listening. If you want to share any ideas or stories that you've come across, feel free to reach out to us using the hashtag #BigIdeasInEducation. Of course, we'll link both of these articles where we got these stories this week, and we would love to help you remember to take a break, take a moment if you need it, and drop us a line if you'd care to. Have a great week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.